Thank you for viewing this YouTube archive of a Conscious Consumer Network broadcast. Please feel free to share it far and wide. Check out our weekly broadcast guide for weekly updates on scheduled broadcasts. Help keep us on the air by contributing to our network support fund. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter or get in touch via email. We thank you for supporting free and independent media.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Desiree Rover from the Netherlands with the Minority of One report. And I have on this Valentine's Day, 14th of February 2016, I have a fabulous guest for you, Vicki Thorne. And oh, you're so welcome, Vicki. I'm so wanting to talk to you.
Oh, thank you. It's always wonderful to talk to you too. We always have interesting conversations.
We do, yes. And I positioned us in the announcement as the grandmothers.
Good. That's good.
Yes. That's yeah. We both are.
We are the wisdom women.
Exactly. Yes. And we speak from being concerned, and we speak out of love, but we have to say some harsh things sometimes because truth is important to share and is not always very friendly.
No, nor is it popular.
Exactly, yeah. But don't confuse us with what we are talking about because we are different persons than the stuff we are talking about. But basically, we want to help people, younger generations, not to make the mistakes that we see that are being made and the mistakes that maybe we ourselves made in our past when we were young and didn't know any better. So much for putting here the platform from which we speak. And Vicki, maybe you can help the audience introduce yourself because you started out more or less with abortion issues.
Yes. And really, historically speaking, I got interested in it because a friend of mine, when I was in high school, so I was in my teen years, had an abortion arranged by her mother. And it was not yet legal in the United States, but it was readily available. And it turned out that she had already had a baby, placed that child for adoption, got pregnant the second time, and there was abuse in the family. And her brother was the father of the second baby, and I believe he was probably the father of the first baby. That her mother had sent her to this school. It was a day school, boarding school. I was a day student. She was a boarding student. And I think her mother sent her there to protect her, right? Mm-hmm. Gets pregnant. Her mother arranges this abortion in a large metropolitan hospital. And over the years that followed, my friend talked to me about it a lot. And she had finished every conversation with the same two words. I can live with the adoption. I can't live with the abortion. And those words are still etched in my heart. I didn't know what to say to her. I'm a teenager. I'm going into college. I have no experience in what's gone on here. But it was something that never left me. I went on and got a degree in psychology. I worked in the apartment industry for a while doing sales work, which helps you hone your listening skills. And then we moved to another city, and I was a woman who worked with pregnant girls, helping them make decisions for a while. And then I was offered a job that I didn't really want. And I declined it twice. The third time I decided to take it, but it was working within the Catholic Church here to implement a plan that the Catholic bishops had called for, which was education on life issues, getting people involved in the legislative process, caring for women with crisis pregnancies, and a ministry of healing for those who had had abortions. And that spoke to me enormously because I thought, as we have the resources we need to care for women, but we have to recognize what the problem is. And so it took me 7 years to put together a training. All right. There weren't experts in this kind of grief. All right. I finally found them. I was missing one person. And that one person happened to be being flown here from Italy for something else. And so based on that, we planned a training day. And we had probably 60 clergy and an equal number of mental health people and medical professionals. And I invited the press, and I was not going to announce that there was a formal outreach for about 6 weeks, because just because I trained somebody yesterday didn't mean they would feel competent doing something today, you know.
Mhm.
But the media thought this was so interesting that it was the front page story in the morning paper the next day, and it went around the world that day. In 6 weeks, I got letters back from other countries around the world saying, please tell us how to do this. And this is before social media. Okay, this is the old days of fax machines and phones on the wall. I've been around a long time. As you said, we're grandmothers. But the need was so incredible, and people recognized that it was something no one was talking about. And so that's the background. And then I went on to get certified in things I needed to know. So I have a certification in bereavement, in prenatal loss, in trauma counseling, in spiritual direction. I've been a member of a group called the Association of Pre- and Perinatal Psychology and Health for a long time. And those things all helped me to help women who are coming. And then over time, it became clear that men were also struggling with this. And as we go along in the show today, I want to share a little bit about what happens to men in pregnancy that people are not aware of. All right. But the fathers also needed some assistance in care. There's a myth that men are sperm donors and that's it. You know, responsibility, well, it's her body, it's none of your business. And the other myth is that men force abortions. Well, sometimes they do, but sometimes they don't. And sometimes they don't even know until after it's happened. And each one of those has sort of a unique wrinkle in terms of how it plays out in someone's life. But that's the background. And then as we go on and we talk about some of the biology in terms of bonding, that sort of fits with this, because the more I learned about our bodies and the things that nobody's told us about how bonding happens, how men are changed, how women are changed, all those sorts of things, this all fits together. Okay. Women grieve for a reason. There's a biological reason why she's grieving after an abortion. And we don't talk about that. Okay. And so it unfolded in that fashion. And then there's another piece that I don't think we'll get into today, but who knows? That's also on the wounds of people born since the 1960s in terms of the sociological changes that have happened not only in the U.S., but in a lot of countries. Family breakdown, mobility, you know, I'm not with my family group anymore. There's no support for me. The impact of chemical contraceptives, the impact of abortion, all those sorts of things. So these things all sort of fit together in terms of a bigger picture. Yeah. So that's the background for our listeners.
Yeah, well, that's quite impressive. You really delved into the subject, and swimming in that pool, you discovered more and more and more, as usually is the case if you really go look for things.
Yeah. And one always leads you to something else. I mean, that's, you know, it's
Mm-hmm.
never a freestanding anything as near as I can tell in the world. It's all interrelated in some fashion.
Yes. And the fact that even if you have a spontaneous abortion because something is wrong with the fetus, that also brings on a grieving process.
Absolutely.
And that's not talked about very much either.
No, and you know, we're sometimes very insensitive about those things. And so what we say to people is, oh, you can have another baby. There was something wrong with that baby. But the reality is that mothers carry cells from every child they ever conceived the rest of their lives. Mm-hmm. That mother carries cells from her miscarried children, from her aborted children. And what's interesting is she carries more cells from those children than she does from the children she gave birth to. I don't know what that's about. There's a lot of research ongoing. All right. The cells are everywhere in our body. So I have brain cells that are my son's, okay, in my liver, my whatever. And I pass the cells of previous occupants of my uterus to the ones that follow. Yeah. So my offspring have the cells of their older siblings, whether they were miscarried, aborted, or born. When you think about it, that's pretty remarkable. And they also carry our mother cells. So they're carrying our cells. And I think that is the groundwork, if you will, for mother's intuition. Yeah, because DNA will resonate. Yes, it resonates and talks to each other. You know, it's the quantum physicists who could explain it to you in case you want to know. When they've been in my audience, they go, oh, I can explain it. I'm like, but I couldn't understand it. So the quantum physicists could explain it to you.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. That is also a good explanation, I think, why family constellation by Bert Hellinger
Mhm.
works. I mean, you can pick up the energy and go with it, even if you're a person who was not even involved in the situation, because the situation carries that information.
Well, also to keep in mind that everybody in the world, and it's not often that we can say that and be accurate, but this one's accurate. Everybody in the world carries the mitochondria of their mothers. Those are
Hmm.
the energy cells. Now, it's not just their mothers, it's their mothers, 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 back to 7 lines of women. And with an implication that there's sort of an Eve figure in terms of this particular line. And there's probably about 3 of these in the world. So I am carrying that knowledge and that energy. The people can do a scan, all right, find the mitochondria, tell you which of the 7 lines of women you came from and what their migrational patterns were through history. It's fascinating. But so men have that, women have that, but men's Y, okay, so their XY, we're XX, is also their father's Y back through equal generations.
Yeah.
And there's even markers on the Y. The Y in the Jewish community carries those that are of the priestly caste have a special marker.
Mm-hmm.
So that issue of intergenerational energy and connection is there. And we don't talk about it. We sort of pretend we're all rugged individuals, sort of disembodied, whatever goes on in my head, that's what's supposed to happen. Sorry, we are body, mind, and spirit, and it is all connected all the time.
Yeah. Bruce Lipton speaks about that also, that we started out as original traditional people where all was one, and then it became separated, and now with quantum physics we bring it back together again.
Yeah. It's fascinating pieces, because that interfamilial piece is so important, where we came from, and that longing that we see in people, for instance, who are conceived as sperm donor children, ovum donor children, surrogates, all right? They
Mm-hmm.
want to know who they are. And there's this drive that says, this isn't who, I don't know who I am. Okay. Anonymous parenting, if you will. We need to know what those lines are. Where did we come from?
Yeah. They miss a piece of information that is their birthright, basically.
Yeah, it is. It's a birthright.
Yeah.
And it's important for us to know that, because there's also the studies that have been done on epigenetics. Now, epigenetics were out of favor for a while. Okay, they were talked about a long time ago, and they were like, oh no, that can't be. It's all DNA. It's all DNA.
Yeah.
Epigenetics are about what happened that may change the DNA expression in my body. Doesn't change my DNA, but change my expression. And interesting, some of the first work done on this was in Holland after the famine, World War II, the famine. And they saw that the offspring of people who were touched by the famine in a significant way had certain health predispositions.
Okay. Yeah.
The Chinese say we're more likely to get the diseases of our grandmothers because when grandma was pregnant with our mother, all the ovum she would ever have were present by 20 weeks. So what happened in grandma's body in terms of stress and other things impacted the ovum of her daughter. That's us.
Yeah.
And you think about it, and it's truly remarkable.
Yes, and that is exactly what Barry Trower is talking about when he speaks about the electromagnetic radiation in a classroom for girls.
For girls? Okay.
And that is also their eggs are being attacked by the radiation, so that brings on damage to the next generations.
Well, and we also know that cell phones worn on males cause damage to sperm. And we don't know what the long-term implications of that are, but we know that it severely reduces the number, changes how the sperm swim. And I don't think that anybody's actually looked at the next question, which is that one you just raised. What's happening here?
Yeah, well, I think we can put up one word, and that is population reduction.
Absolutely. That's what it's about.
Or eugenics, what it was called before. Yeah. That is big time. They're working on it big time, because when we look at what Bill Gates is doing with the vaccines, even stating that they are needed to reduce the population. I mean,
Oh, well, and did you see the research on the women in sub-Saharan Africa who are given Depo-Provera, the shot? All right.
oh yeah.
Oh, yeah. HIV is 3 times higher in those women. That takes care of a lot of issues, really, you know. If
Yeah.
we're just they're going to die off, you know. Isn't that a shame? I mean, it's just so callous in terms of women's health.
Yeah, it's incredible what is happening there. What I also read and heard is that a woman, when she sleeps with a man, picks up cells and DNA information from him as well, and carries it with her.
Yes, and that piece is interesting. One, we know that she absorbs chemistry because the seminal fluid has 30 kinds of compounds and 15 kinds of hormones, and the hormones all happen to be women hormones. Okay, so for 15 hours after intercourse, unprotected, obviously no condoms, she absorbs all that chemistry. So 13 kinds of prostaglandins, follicle stimulating hormone, luteinizing hormone, there's a number of them. So that piece is there. And it was interesting. There's a physician I met from India at a conference I was at, and I was telling him about this. And at first he was sort of dubious. All right. He came back the next year and he said, Vicki, there's an article you have to see. And the article had to do with flies. And the fact that when this female fly mated with a large fly, in that particular case, there was no reproduction. Later, she mated with a small fly, and there was reproduction, and the flies produced were the large flies.
Oh, wow.
So this question of how much do we absorb, and what's being changed by this? Are the ovum potentially being changed by the sperm that's come from other males? Question mark. You know, people sometimes talk about how that child looks like her previous partner. I mean, nobody's looked at the research, but it's very interesting because the more you learn about the absorption issue and what's happening here, there's a multitude of possibilities.
Yes. And with the promiscuity of today,
yes,
that's even a more intriguing affair.
Well, it is. And this question of the promiscuity, if I am chemically contracepting, I am not using condoms. All right. So I am being exposed to this hormonal fluid that's in my body. And if I'm changing partners regularly, that's a serious issue. One of the things that we know is that if, as a woman, I've had multiple partners in a short time, the sperm, there's 3 types of sperm out there. It's research by a guy by the name of Robin Baker, who's British. There's egg getters, there's blockers, and there's killers. And the egg getters are the ones we know. They're the sleek ones with the tail. The misshapen ones are there on purpose by design, and they fill in crypts in the cervix so that the egg getters can get through. All right. Killers are benign unless I have had multiple partners in a short time, in which case the killer sperm of all the males I've had sex with are triggered, and they're very poisonous. And their role is to kill the sperm of the other guy. All right. But what it does to our body is it changes the atmosphere, the environment of the uterus. We normally have an acidic uterus, which protects us from things. It kills off, different kinds of bacteria and things like that. Well, now it's alkaline. And we may get bacterial vaginosis or some other infection, but these are very serious infections. And we have to know, the other thing that's interesting is that sperm has to be changed in the body of the woman in order for it to be capable of entering the ovum. That's why we have to do in vitro fertilization. It's called capacitation. And so the egg getters come in, gather kind of at the bottom of the fallopian tube, as I understand the drawings, chemical change going on, all right? We don't know exactly how long it takes, probably a few hours, all right? And now the head of the sperm is capable of doing what's called the acrosome reaction. Now it can enter the ovum, and it swims differently with more intent. But advance of what's going on here is amazing, because we just assume that sperm are potent and can, fertilize ovum at any time. It isn't the case. And what's interesting is that it's the ovum that picks the sperm out of all the ones that get there. And now we know that across the world, wherever hormonal contraceptives have been introduced, male sperm counts have dropped by half. Just right now. Plus, we're putting all that chemistry in the water, so goodness only knows what that's doing for us women, too, in terms of all the extra estrogen that isn't normal estrogen. Mm-hmm. But that whole question of how complex this is and how many things can interfere with it, we're clueless about that, And it needs to be talked about, because people need to be making good decisions. The other thing that's out there, and I talk about this a lot with young people, in the United States, we've got the big push for marijuana. All right, in Colorado and some of the other states. Well, research shows that the THC of pot damages sperm, no questions asked. And it also interferes with the hormonal communication when the sperm is entering the ovum. And if a baby is conceived, moves down the fallopian tubes, the chemistry that will be signaling where the placenta should be built can be interfered with this THC. Well, women use pot too, and it stays in our fatty tissues. We don't know how long it stays there. But we're looking at all this, all this infertility that's out there now. What's going on?
Yeah. Well, for one thing, the HPV vaccines.
Yeah.
They are, for me, a sterilization agenda. I have no doubts about that.
But see, they keep blocking the information on it. Here in the States, we had a girl die in one of our suburbs here the day she got the shot. She went home. Her mother ran to the grocery store. She was a teenager. She could stay home alone, and found her dead on the floor. She had taken Benadryl for her allergies. It couldn't possibly be the HPV vaccine.
Oh yeah.
Such a lie. And when you look at how many of these women have neurological responses, all right? We're going to have an epidemic in women in about 10 years. That's my prediction. Could be 20, who knows, of neurological diseases, and nobody's going to make the connection. We don't know where this came from. Oh, isn't this just so tragic? It's out there. And then the premature sterilization, these girls going into premature menopause.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Yeah.
And now we're giving it to boys.
Yeah.
And what's that going to do?
They are crazy. And have malintent.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
And nobody's willing to speak the truth. You look at the lawsuits here in the United States. Some of these drug companies are very well protected against lawsuits. Now, some have gotten hit, but some sort of saw it coming and worked things out so that it's harder to sue and it can't really be their problem. And really, come on.
Yeah. Yeah, but logic will get you nowhere in this.
No, not in this. No, not at all. No. Well, even
justice, don't expect it either. No.
Well, they don't. Just yesterday I was having a conversation with one of my daughters, and we were talking about Botox. And I said to her, why would you do that? You understand that is a highly toxic poison. I don't care for what reason you're using it. Why would you put that in your body? And she just couldn't hear me. So I went on the computer. She'll be getting a packet of articles soon. But, we're told these things are so good for us. And then when you look, you go look at the medical research, you go, oh, wait a minute here. This was not benign. Yes, it took care of the crow's feet by your eyes, but it left you with muscle problems. It left you with other problems that you wouldn't have had.
Same with the breast implants. Oh, my gosh. What is happening there?
Yeah, well, all of those things are just, you can't fool Mother Nature. That's the old expression.
Yes, exactly. But it all is in combination with the fact that women are being told they're not good enough. They're not beautiful enough. They're not like Barbie. Oh gosh.
Yeah. Well, and early on, one of the things that struck me, because I started doing a lot of looking at the research on hormonal contraceptives, because in terms of women's health, this is another issue. Yeah. And do you know that one of the things it does is it changes women's brains, and it makes our brain go as a male brain. And so we see the world as a male sees the world. Well, okay, that changes a lot of things in terms of my perception of myself, in terms of my perception of the gift of my femininity, the gift of my fertility. it shifts things on such a grand scale. How many million women in the world are on some kind of hormonal contraception? I think I saw a number, 68 million or something. I mean, it's stupendously high.
Yeah.
Okay, we're being changed and nobody tells us. And that's not touching on all the other things in terms of the nutritional issues and the other health issues. Any of it.
Yeah. That is what Ross Pelton is talking about. And I'm translating his booklet. I will.
Oh, you've got it. Good. I was looking for my copy and I couldn't find it.
Yeah, well, yeah, you can see it. Huh? Yeah.
No problem.
I'm translating it into Dutch because I think it's so important that women know what they're doing. And I have another book which is not interesting enough in terms of the cover to hold it up, but it is a NATO book, The Biology of Aggression. Oh. And in there they speak about inducing aggression, for instance, by way of cutting the olfactory bulb.
Yep.
So that rats and mice cannot smell. Mm-hmm. And what happens to rats is that they can't smell and they get very aggressive. And some mice get very docile. So the next question, of course, is what does it do to humans? And what does the contraception pill do? Mm-hmm. It cuts your sense of smell.
Actually what it does is it shifts it. And it's not the nerve involved is a little tiny one in front of the perfume nerve, though when we pick our perfume, we match our natural scent, our pheromone scent. And when I'm on the pill, it tells my body I'm pregnant. And so the male I am attracted to now is someone whose immune system is very much like my own, my father's, or my brother's. It's called the MHC complex. And when I go off the pill, I no longer find him attractive. There is no sexual spark there. If I am not on chemical contraceptives, when I meet him, I will be attracted to a male who is a complement to me. His immune system is quite different from mine. There's a little overlap that has to do with my father's inheritance, all right? But people aren't told that. And, there's people writing about these things. There's an article in the Wall Street Journal from a few years ago called The Tricky Chemistry of Attraction. There was one from The Guardian that was called the sniff test. So if you've been cohabiting and you're using contraceptives and you think you want to have a child, then the woman should go off the contraceptives for a period of time, but we don't know exactly how long, all right, because we don't know how long it takes to come out of her body. And then you have the male wear the same T-shirt for 3 days with nothing scented, no aftershave, scented aftershave or anything. Then the instruction is that she would sniff it and see if he smelled nice or not to determine whether the possibility of fertility is there. This is amazing stuff. And those pheromones are built in. They're scent hormones of affiliation. We recognize our children. If we have our baby with us right after it's born and then they take the baby away, they blindfold us and they bring us a bunch of babies, we by scent will know our baby. Husbands take a little longer. The first thing they know before scent is the feel of the back of the baby's hand because they're more tactile. That's a stronger awareness in them. And then scent comes, all right. We would recognize people we were not related to or that we didn't know we were related to. We'd be attracted to them. And there are some very scary stories about that. There was one in Britain a few years ago. This couple met, fell in love. And right before the wedding, the parents told them that they were both adopted. Okay, they didn't have any idea. So after they were married, they completed the search and discovered they were fraternal twins. So there was an annulment. Yep. And there was another story in South Africa. Again, couple met in the big city, went back to the tribal area to meet the family and discovered that his father had had an indiscretion with her mother. And they too were half siblings. All right. Then there was a story in Britain, and this one was almost terrifying to me. It was a couple, doctor and his wife had a sperm bank. The wife assumed there were many donors. He was the sole donor. And there were more than 500 children in that community that were related to each other. How do you find that out? I mean, the fear, when you look at the websites of the sperm donor kids, they're out there, okay? The ovum donor kids are out there. They're terrified that they're going to be attracted to somebody that they're related to. And there's no way to confirm that, really. It's very, very scary. But again, that gift of knowing, that scent is there. If you give people T-shirts that they've worn, a pile of of one would be your pile, and then there'd be others, and there'd be generic female and generic male. 8 out of 10 of us will immediately identify our own t-shirt. We know that body scent, all right? Mm-hmm. And 7 out of 10 of us would accurately pick out male from female, because women tend to generically smell sweet and men tend to smell like musk, which is in a lot of aftershave and a lot of male perfume.
Yeah.
You know, but that's kind of the broad spectrum. Okay, then from there it just gets finer and finer and finer in terms of who we would identify and how we would identify them.
Yes. Well, and then we have the industry that uses musk, but also pheromones in their products. And oh, gee, what's happening then?
Yeah, and see, I haven't found, I know they're out there, but I haven't found any research on it. So if you have any, send it to me, because I'd be interested in it. I mean, it should, I mean, in theory, it would be somewhat, if they had just broad spectrum, it might be attractive, all right? But again, I'm not picking a partner then based on my pheromone scent. No. This is a generic pheromone. Pheromones communicate very specific things about me and about my immune system and all that kind of thing. We're messing with the human race in ways that are unbelievable.
Yes. Yeah. We try to improve on natures here and there.
Yeah, we think we know better.
Yeah. But from what I've seen, it comes back to us with a vengeance.
Well, it does. And again, the complexity of the body, because, you know, we talk as a society really about, we speak as though we are disembodied. You know, whatever I intend up here is how it's going to go. So I can have random sexual encounters as a male or as a female and nothing's going to come of it. Well, the reality is you can't turn off your hormonal bonding system. It's there. It's going to happen. If you're a male and you have sexual intimacy with a woman, you have got chemistry that's bonding you to it. You can walk away from it, but you're changed by it. Yeah. And the same is true for us women. So it's not only the seminal fluid, but it's the other chemistry of oxytocin and all the other bonding pieces that are there. When you look at the complexity of it, you go, holy cow, you know, this is so incredibly complicated.
Yes, what you are describing is described very well in this book, Hooked.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not supposed to do it like this, but that goes quicker than just changing the screen. They talk about the hormones that how you say that? They give you something positive when you do something like dopamine. It's a reward system.
Yeah.
And so you go for the rush by the hormonal system, this reward stuff.
Yep.
But that has nothing to do with the woman you're with or the man you're with.
No, and see, we don't understand, again, generically, all right, we've not been told that first phase of attraction is infatuation. Now we know the word and all that, but there's different chemistry. The brain chemistry of that is an amphetamine. Your brain can't stay in an amphetamine state permanently because it'll burn itself out. And it's under the influence of, it's a long Latin name called PEA, okay? But what's interesting is it's related to obsessive compulsive disorder in the brain. That's the part that's impacted here, all right? And it only lasts about 4 months, maximum 4 years, but rarely years, mostly months. And the normal progression is from the amphetamine state to the oxytocin state, which is the deeper bonding. That's an opiate bond. That's the stuff of long-term relationships. But we are so convinced that the excitement of the amphetamine state is where I have to be. That then you get love junkies. Well, I don't feel quite the same way about her that I used to, so I go looking for someone else. Well, the reality is the amphetamine, the impassioned state settles down a little bit and you move forward into the next stage. And the other problem with infatuation is that that's a very, it's a funny stage because I can't see clearly. Okay. Yeah. He texts me 32 times a day. It must be love. Well, in fact, it might be stalking behavior. Okay.
Yeah, right.
We become more objective when we go into that next stage, the oxytocin stage, where we look back and go, you know, is this really a relationship that has legs? Is this someone I want to stay with? And then you make real decisions. The problem with that first stage is it's subjective and it's passionate. Okay. And so many times, especially in this world, people jump into sexual relationships without any real cognizance of what could happen. Okay. And that's an important piece for us to talk about. It's interesting. I do these talks, this particular one that we're doing now, we're talking about high schools, colleges, all right? Because if I can equip those young people to make good decisions, it's a win.
Yeah.
And I was at a setting one night, and these two young men came up to me after I'd been talking about the impact of the pill on choosing partners. He said, Mrs. Thorne, we've made a decision. I said, gentlemen, what is it? When a girl finds us attractive, the first thing we're going to ask her now is she on the pill? Because we're very serious about a lifelong commitment when we make it. And we don't want anything interfering with it. So I talk about this in other places, and now I go back to campuses, and I'll have young men come up and say to me, Mrs. Thorne, remember when you talked about those two guys? I asked the same question.
Great. That's perfect. Yeah.
But see, our girls don't know. Parents put them on the pill because the doctor says, oh, it's for your acne, it's for your bad cramps. And we don't talk about the fact that the periods we get on the pill are not real periods. That's just hormonal breakthrough bleeding. Your body isn't doing what it's supposed to do to clean the uterus and start over fresh every month. And that's, I think, one of the things in the long term that we run into in terms of some of this infertility stuff. The body isn't doing what it's supposed to do. And these young women are on it for years. And now here in the States, we really want to start implanting IUDs into our 6th, 7th, and 8th grade girls. So 12, 13, 14. What in heaven's name, Desiree, is that going to do to the body? I mean, I just am speechless at that fiasco.
Yeah, I am too. Oh, it's the technotronic era, or the technocratic medical manipulation or dictatorship. It's amazing. And we believe it because we haven't learned otherwise in school, because all the systems are geared toward this sort of so-called thinking.
Yeah.
I call it parroting.
Yeah.
And we don't know what's really going on. And we have no clue about the many, 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 many ways that we interact and communicate with each other other than language. Or
see, girls don't know that if we're not contracepting and we spend time together, within 3 months, we will cycle together again based on these pheromones. Now, these go back, eons to the, early ages. The reason women had to cycle together is because if I died, someone had to be able to nurse my baby. We didn't have formula. We didn't have bottles. And it had to be someone that would be invested enough in taking on another baby. And that kinship circle, we women lived in a community, again, anthropologically speaking, long ago, women lived in the community, and we had to keep our eye on a lot of things. And that's why we're multitaskers. The males would be out hunting or fishing or whatever, and would come back as a group. Now think about this. When they come back as a group, we would all be cycling together. So the temptation to be unfaithful would probably be unnecessary, because the women in the community would all be ready and receptive. I mean, again, truly remarkable when you think about it. But I've had young women on campuses who tell me that they have roommates who are on the pill. And they said, it screwed up my cycle. I used to have this kind of cycle, and now it's a disaster. It's irregular. It's, the pheromones would be different. Okay. Because if I'm, again, chemically contracepting, it changes my scent, because we know that men lose this attraction to us when we're ovulating. That's the work of Lionel Tiger. And so other women, I think, too, would also perceive things. And some of this stuff hasn't been researched yet. There's still a ton of possibilities for research out here. But that question of we're supposed to be in sync with each other, that, by nature, so that this question of childbearing and other things, again, it's in sync. One of the things that started this pursuit of the biology question for me was a lived experience. When I had our 4th child, I met a woman who lived near me, and our kids were generically the same age, but nobody had birthdays close to each other. And we had our 5th kids, and they were born about 4 months apart. We had our 6th kids, and they were due the same day. And I did not in a million years think that would happen. I mean, seriously, this is just ridiculous. I go to the hospital at midnight on March 23rd, and my daughter is born at 7 a.m. on March 24th. Before she is born, my neighbor is in the next room in labor. And that child is born within 24 hours of my daughter. He took a nap, so his birthday's the next day, but it's 24 hours. That's what got me interested in this, because then I was reading a book called The Anthropology of Mothering by Sarah Hrdy, Hrdy. And I discovered this business about how we communicate by pheromones and all that sort of thing. And I suddenly understood that's what had happened with Joan and I. We had become kin. We saw each other a lot. We babysat for each other. There was this frequent contact between us. Yeah. And we had cycled together.
Oh,
it's an amazing thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that won't happen very much these days anymore because of the pill and all the IUDs and stuff. Yeah.
Well, the chemistry of the pill messes with that as well. But, you know, we'll talk to people like our age who will say to you, oh, you know, my sister-in-laws and I, we all had babies just about the same time. You know, well, what was that? I think that's, again, nature saying, you know, you need to be supportive of each other in case something happens here. You know, you've got to be able to back each other up, you know, and again, the awesomeness of all of this there. I don't know if you saw the research on the fact that breast milk put on cancer cells in Petri dishes kills at least 40 kinds on contact. Another one says 70. And now they've extracted two substances. One is called Hamlet, and I forget what the other one is called. In the United States, they're using it to treat prostate cancer very effectively. There's no ill effects to this. It just kills cancer. I think in Northern Europe, up in Scandinavia, they're using it for brain cancer. And the one article said that in the heart of Europe, they were using it for some other cancers. They're experimenting with it. Now, is this ever going to get promoted? No, it's not, because no pharmaceutical company can make money off of it because it's a natural occurring substance.
Exactly. Yeah, it's the same old there. Yeah. There was a question that I had. What I miss is that bonding together of women that you're talking about. That was in the old days.
Yes.
And I feel this yearning for that sometimes.
Well, and you know, again, the research shows that when women come together, we just in each other's presence, right? We leave with the chemistry of calm. It releases oxytocin in us, and it settles our stressors, all right? And 20 seconds of touch releases the chemistry of connection also. So if someone is really stressed, if you can put a hand or on an arm, you help them to feel better biologically. You know, in the very old days in the United States, women would get together to build quilts, to make quilts. They'd quilt blankets.
Yeah.
And the husbands were like, oh, this is awesome. You're going to bring home a blanket. She's like, oh, yes, dear. And then all these women would be in this room, work together for a day. They all came home feeling really good. And there was a blanket. And he's thinking, this is awesome. She comes back. She's not so crabby anymore. This is a win on all counts. But women used to always gather. We would gather with our children. We would gather here in the United States. People used to hang their laundry out. So you would talk to your neighbor over the fence. You knew your neighbors, and we lived in close proximity in cities. So the possibility of spending time with women we knew was a reality. We didn't have to drive far from where we lived to where we might find our friends. But that's absolutely true. And see, men, they get testosterone by being with other men, okay? And young men need older men to be with them, because the older man, somehow by scent, sets the young man's proper testosterone level. If it's not this adult male, his testosterone usually is way too high as an adolescent, so he does stupid things, risk-taking, impregnating, drugs, alcohol. But then as an adult, his testosterone is lower than it should have been. Okay?
Yeah. It's mixed up. It's messed up.
Well, and we're missing the men who used to be there for our sons. You know, not every family sustained itself in the old days, but we had other women there for our daughters. Grandma was there. Our sister was there. Her older sisters were there. Women who invested and helped her. For men, there were other men. There were grandfathers. There were uncles. They took them fishing, hunting. They did male things. And in that had conversations about how men behaved in the society.
Yeah.
And now it's missing. It's just not there.
No, and the information that young people get is Hollywood television series with stupid ways of relationships.
Well, you know, there was the piece the BBC did, what was it, a year or two ago? And it was interesting because there was a herd of adolescent elephants that were destroying a village. And I don't remember if it was in India or if it was in Africa, but they were just making a mess out of things. And they were killing the rhinos. And one of the elder men in the community said, what we need is an adult male elephant. They went and got an adult male elephant. They walked him into the village, and all the young elephants followed him right out of town. And that was the end of their misbehavior. But again, that communication of the elders with the young, it's missing in our societies now. It's not.
Absolutely. Yeah. And one of the dire results of that is what I see is that women who get pregnant and are about to give birth have no clue whatsoever about giving birth and about the power of their body, the wisdom of their body. They have never seen a birth. They have never been at a birth. They have no grandmother telling them this, that, or the other.
Well,
so
and
they're
again,
victims of the hospitals.
Absolutely. And see, young women used to be part of birth. Okay, when you were really little, you got to be outside the birthing hut and you didn't let anybody in or whatever your job was. And then as you grew older, you became part of the process. And by the time you had a baby, you trusted that it worked and that the women who were helping you knew what they were doing. That's a whole different thing than what happens now, where women are so frightened of birth. And many of them have had bad births themselves. Their own birth was very traumatic. And I think of somebody in our extended family who I think had a very traumatic birth. And she would sit at my kitchen table and say, I'm so afraid of birth. I don't know how this will work. And I said to her, look, you don't birth for 9 months. You grow a baby for 9 months, but birth doesn't take 9 months. And so when she did get married, I encouraged her to have an at-home birth with a midwife. There was an excellent midwifery practice there. They were right by the hospital. Okay. The first birth, Desiree, was so awesome. She's been in labor a couple hours. And she's feeling kind of funny, kind of pushy. And she says to her husband, well, why don't you call the midwife? Because I'm feeling funny. And the midwife comes and checks her, and she was in the bathroom downstairs. And the midwife said to her, the bathroom or the bedroom? You have to choose right now. 4 hours. For the
Whoa.
4 hours. It healed so many things in her, I can't begin to tell you. And the second birth was almost as short, not quite as short. It was a boy again, and I think those boys take naps. Okay. That's my personal experience. But what was healed in being able to really embrace that birthing experience.
Yes.
Without all the intervention stuff was
so important.
And so important.
And women think they feel okay when they're in the hospital, but there is so much going on around them. They can never land into their inner selves.
No.
They can never reach that place of wisdom of the body, knowing what to do. And my first birth was several times over medical rape.
No, see?
And I have had 4 children, and the last one was born at home. And so I have a whole scala of giving birth, different ways.
Yep.
And the best thing, if I could do my life over, I would get my children in water at home with only the people around me that I want to be there, period.
Yeah. See, I would do that too. My first birth wasn't as bad as yours, but it was very difficult. And, they gave me medicine, and I happened to be very, very sensitive. It wasn't an epidural, but just something to relax. But I'm super sensitive to medication, which I didn't know. All right. I couldn't feel my contractions. I mean, this was not something that was supposed to take away that ability. So this poor daughter had this long, protracted delivery. And I still to this day feel very bad about that, because after that, I got smart, though all of them, we didn't have an option here on home delivery at that point. It wasn't possible. But I said to my doctor, who was a very wise, he and his wife had 9 children. He was very respectful of the birthing process. I said to him, next time, don't let him offer me medication unless it's life-threatening. Okay, I will trust what you say, but tell him I don't want medication. And after that, it was so much better.
Yeah.
But the other problem with hospital births now, Desiree, is that so many of our women have had abortions. That abortion clinic, when they go into that delivery room, it looks just like it. Okay?
Yes.
Yeah, the people Lauren scrubs, the monitors are there, the smell is there, and now we've really shut them down in terms of setting off their cortisol and their stress hormones. Well, this is going to be a complicated delivery from the get-go.
Yes. Yeah, I have been helping my daughter-in-law, and they had given her oxytocin.
Oh, did they?
I was so mad because I was just too late in the hospital to see to it that they didn't do that.
Yeah.
I had to help her for 7 hours fighting these crazy contractions, this unnatural stuff. Yeah. And then, of course, the baby got into problems because of that, because he didn't get any oxytocin from her.
From her, yeah.
So in came this doctor with all his instruments, and it was a vacuum birth. So
if they aren't vacuum births now, those are more common. But the others were the forceps deliveries. Yeah. Well, we know that people are predisposed to migraine headaches and to other things from the trauma of that. And again, there's so much that's gone on that we just don't think about what the fallout is.
Yeah.
And there is so much of it there. There's just so much of it.
Yes. And it's when you think it through logically, you understand intuitively also that these things all have results which are not very positive.
Right.
And it has to do with the ruining of the bonding process between mother and child. And also for the father and the child, a birth like what I just described, you have 3 losers, the mother, the baby, and the father.
Yep. Well, and again, what we don't know about men is that 4 weeks into a pregnancy, now that's before I know for sure I'm pregnant, all right? He knows by scent I'm pregnant, and his body starts to change. So the first thing that happens is his cortisol goes up, not to be stressed, but to protect. Then the second thing that happens is 60 to 90% of men, if they're with their partner, experience kuvad. Now, primitive cultures knew what that was. Our doctors, for the most part, have never heard of this, okay? He has symptoms with his partner. He's nauseous, he's vomiting, he's tired, he's got headaches and backaches and toothaches, and the list is long. And 20% of them are really sick, and they will go see a doctor, okay? I'm throwing up all the time. I'm not feeling well. I'm nauseous, again, headaches, backaches, toothaches. I've got food cravings. I'm not sleeping well, and I've gained 6 pounds if we're a little later in the pregnancy. And the doctor says, oh, it's a virus. It'll go away, all right? So the question of what's going on. Well, the 20% of men who are really sick when the baby comes, they already know the different cries. They can tell the difference between tired and hungry and whatever. The other guys have to learn, but those 20% know. Now, right before the baby comes, his hormones go crazy. His testosterone drops like a rock. He gets more estrogen, kinder, gentler, more protective. Gets more cortisol, again, bonding and protection. Gets vasopressin, which is a predominantly male hormone, not 100%, but predominantly male, present in every act of intimacy that gives me preference now for this female and makes me jealous. Now, I can walk away, but I'm changed. At this point, what vasopressin is doing is saying, Mother Nature saying, sit, stay, don't abandon. Okay, you must stay present. And then he gets prolactin, the nursing hormone, for 6 weeks, and it makes him really, really, really helpful. And when his hormones go back to normal, the first one that never returns to normal after the first birth is testosterone.
Yeah.
It never goes as high again as it was. He went from being a hunter-aggressor to being a protector-provider.
Yeah.
How amazing is that? And fathers, when you talk about it, they recognize it immediately. They're like, I threw up all the time, and I was what you just described. But we tell them that pregnancy doesn't have anything to do with you. Once the baby comes, then you're somehow supposed to attach. The reality is that this chemistry is leading you to attachment. And then that traumatic birth can complicate that whole thing enormously. And the importance of fathers holding their baby skin to skin so the baby learns his scent as well, as well as the mother's scent. I mean, all of those pieces that we interfere with in hospital births.
Yes, absolutely. It's horrendous. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, fathers. Gosh, so important. Also later in life. I also read somewhere that when a girl is close to her father, she will have her menarche later on.
Yes, yes. If her father's present, she doesn't even need to be close to him. He just has to physically be present. Pheromone protects her. She gets her period later. If the father is missing, single mom, she gets her period earlier. And if there's a strange male, meaning not her father, in the household, she gets it even earlier. And now guess who is at risk for abuse? Because she may be the only ovulating female in the house at that point. Mom is contraceptic. And, you look at the rate of abuse in young women. What is it? 1 in 4 for girls, I think. That's incredible.
Yeah.
And also the strange boys who might come with the unrelated male. He may have sons. Well, there's no incest taboo. We have to live together the first 3 years of our life to develop the scent, that pheromone thing. Then we know this is family. And so it might be that it's an adoptive thing, but I've still learned this is family, and this incest taboo is a protection. But otherwise, it's not there. And I am totally, totally vulnerable.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing what can happen there. And again, with the so-called culture of Hollywood and television series and all the sorts of ways that we are being put in the wrong sense about sexuality and love and relationships.
Yep.
It's amazing that not more kids are going astray.
Yeah. Well, but see, I think that what's happened is that intuitively they know something's wrong. They don't know what's wrong. They just know something's wrong. So when I do that talk on a college campus or a high school, they understand it because it's a survival talk. And they get it. I mean, it's just very interesting. And they'll come back 3 and 4 times or 5. Oh, this is the 5th time I've heard your talk. I'm like, why do you keep coming back? And they say, because I hear something different every time.
Oh, good.
So I get stuck. I was talking to a young woman the other night, and she said, the first time I heard it, I got stuck on this one piece. Like, it just blew my mind, and I couldn't move on. But then the next time I knew that, so then I could hear the rest of it. But the importance of speaking the truth to them about who we are and how intricately we're made is important. It's really critical. And the schools are doing none of this. All schools are doing is sort of handing them, here's how to have sex with a condom, at an early age. And how do I make sense out of that? We need to be talking to our girls who are coming into their time of their menarche in terms of the wonder of being a woman. Let's talk about what breasts do. Let's talk about breast milk. Let's talk about our ovaries. Let's talk about the 3 spiral arteries that are on the uterus, and it's the only place in the human body where they occur. Let's get them excited about being a woman.
Wonder about their own bodies. Yeah.
But that's not what we teach. We teach the other stuff, the perversions.
Yes. No respect whatsoever for our own bodies.
For our own bodies, no.
It's ugly. It smells. You need to have sprays and stuff to act as if it's not there.
Well, there's a woman who is a psychiatrist here who's like probably retirement age who got involved in hormone stuff when she went through menopause. Okay, she just got interested in it. Her name is Dr. Susan Racco, and she wrote a book called The Blessings of the Curse. And the same book is called No More Periods, but she revised it slightly and added more stuff to it. But that was one of the first books I read that just the importance of our period in terms of our health. If I'm not getting my period, so for instance, now we have the patches and you can go 6-8 months without your period, I might develop iron overload disease because my body is designed to lose iron through my menstrual flow. We don't talk about that stuff. The fact that those contraceptives change the mucus that protects my body. I am more likely to get a sexually transmitted disease. Name them. Okay. Nobody tells us that, and of course I'm on the pill, so I don't need a condom. I mean, it's all good. It's all fine. Nothing's going to happen. Well, it's a bunch of baloney. But that book was a really interesting book, and she's very courageous in talking about this stuff because it's not popular, as you know.
No, it's not popular. And yes, the things that happen when you have intercourse on the pill, it makes you less respectful towards yourself also.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, you're not living in the dance with your body. You know, the research shows that when people use fertility awareness measures, now there's a bunch of them out there, different types, they're much less likely to get divorced. Divorce drops to 5%. If I'm using some kind of contraception, it's 50%. You know, if that's seatbelts, the government would make it mandatory. All right. But we don't talk about that because the people who are observing their fertility are in the dance together as a couple. They're making decisions. They're respectful of what's happening. That's a whole different experience than as a woman, I'm available to you anytime. And it's disrespectful. Now, the other irony is that the hormonal contraceptives kill your libido. So the irony is that the thing that's supposed to set me free to have sex as often as I want takes away all the pleasure. I mean, how ironic is that? And the depression factor, the depression factor, 50% of women are depressed on the pill. Now, in this country, the doctor who put her on the pill to begin with doesn't say, oh, maybe that pill is a problem. No, here, have some more drugs. Here, have an antidepressant.
Oh, God, yes.
It's a vicious circle. It's a vicious circle.
Yeah. Then this doctor has to take some classes with Ross Pelton, and Ross will explain which nutrients are depleted because of the contraception pill, and it's huge.
They don't talk about that. I have a son-in-law who's a physician, and he got 1 hour in medical school on contraception. Now, what can I teach you in 1 hour as a physician? I mean, what that you would need to know to protect women's lives. Okay.
Yeah. 1 hour on contraception, half an hour on vaccination, and a quarter of an hour on food.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, exactly. And then the rest of it's drugs. Okay.
Yes.
But it's so sad because they don't know enough to be able to help women. When I did a conference at Georgetown University in DC in August that I organized, and what I alluded to earlier. But what was interesting was that how the parents of the daughters who have died as a result of contraception just breaks your heart.
Yes.
Vital, vibrant young women, not told. All right. And what the doctors say is, oh, everybody reads the pharmaceutical sheet, that tells you what the, tells you what the consequences are. If I'm 14, do I know what thrombosis is? I don't have a clue. All right. Carcinoma, I don't have a clue what that means. Okay.
No.
And so there's this lie that somehow we're informed, and there's no way we're informed.
No, not at all. Same with vaccinations. No parent ever has read the product insert of the vaccine before.
Well, you're not given it. You don't even get a chance.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
Yeah. But what I wanted to say is I had an interview with a Dutch woman, Eugenie van Ruitenbeek, and she has written a very, very precious little booklet with the title Sex versus Love.
Oh, really?
And I will ask her permission. There is an English translation. I don't know who did that, and it's not a very qualitative translation, I think. But if she's okay with it, I will send it to you because it is so beautifully done.
That would be awesome. Well, and so you have resources to talk to young people. I mean, there are people writing here. There's some good stuff coming out. But the importance of giving them the science. There's nobody doing that. I'm the only one doing that kind of science talk. And if I can help you to understand how your body works and you respect it, I know you're going to make better decisions.
Yes, sure.
When I talk to the boys about, if sex seems like a good idea, it's because she's ovulating. You are more aroused at that period of time. Again, there's a dance going on here. You have to practice saying something, and it's daddy, daddy, daddy. Are you ready to be a father? Because the chances are higher when you're ovulating that this is going to happen. Yeah. And the boys are very taken with that. And I say to the girls, the high school girls, and I tell the college girls, all right, girls, when your boyfriend says to you, if I can't have sex with you, I'm going to die. Here's your answer. Can I stay and watch? Because there is no known case in the history of mankind who a man successfully died not having sex. If you manage this, there's going to be a documentary, and I'm going to be on TV. And then they all laugh, but the girls never forget that, and neither do the guys.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah. It is a pity that the subject is being so, how you say that, awfully presented in the schools, in the sex education.
Yeah.
There is in Germany, they have 2 volumes about sex, play and doctors or something like that.
Oh my.
And in it, parents are advised to sexually touch their young children.
Oh, charming. Okay, that's good. Yeah.
It's amazing. I mean, and it's a booklet that the state has published. So
okay. Yeah, I
that
don't
is
think we're doing that yet.
yeah, for you. It's amazing. And
Go ahead.
I haven't really heard people say that they don't want that they think that it's an awful thing.
Yeah. No.
There were a few, but generally it's accepted that it's there. It's
Yeah,
amazing.
it's there. See, that is just one of those. You just wonder, how are people ever going to recover sexual health with that kind of misinformation and that kind of treatment?
Yeah.
We have to recover the essence of who we are as bonded people. Okay. You know, when you think about it, if I'm carrying the cells of my children, I am changed by my partner. I have become one with him because I have his DNA in my body. That's truly amazing. If I've had sex with many men and we've conceived many children, many of whom may not have been born, I'm carrying all those cells. What's the long-term health issue there? And the other piece is back to this question about who the man I pick if I'm on the pill. Because his immune system is so much like my own, when children are conceived, my body has trouble discriminating my cells from my children's cells. With the other man, after 6 months of exposure to the sperm, my body goes, oh yeah, that's the partner. Those are the kids. All right. But the possibility that the mother might develop autoimmune issues because of this is a very real one. Because the cells are too similar. And what happens also in terms of the children then who are conceived in this circumstance, look at all the things that are, I don't know if this is going on in Europe, but it's certainly going on here in terms of kids with autoimmune disorders and diseases. There are kids everywhere with this and nobody knows what's wrong. Everybody's, it's such a puzzle. You know, we don't know what's going on and why that's happening. In part, it's because we're picking the wrong partners. You know, yeah. It's one of those pieces that is just, again, nobody's telling us, and we're all, trying to figure out why children have all these allergies and asthma and all these different disorders. I think part of it is that they're not being conceived in terms of the best partner in terms of health. And that's an important piece. You know?
Yeah. So, yeah. Coming back to when conception has taken place and the mother says after 6 weeks, oh, what's this? Oops, I don't want this. What I'm going to do. First of all, if she keeps the baby, that moment that she thought about abortion will be the information that is in the child.
Yep.
And the child has been on his own or her own the first 6 to 8 weeks because mommy didn't know he or she was there. And that is what I call oops babies.
Yeah, oops babies. And those oops babies have major existential issues when they come into the world. They carry a lot of issues. Yeah.
And the patterns of information that they carry, when I talk to Janice Barcelo, she explains that she was conceived on the backseat of a car by 2 teenagers who were experimenting.
Yep.
And she said, guess where I had my first sexual experience? Yeah, right. In the backseat of a car.
Backseat of a car. That's, and for the hormones of anxiety that are there as I'm making this decision are, again, for that baby's body, a long-term inheritance is not a good inheritance. And we don't know why the person who came from that kind of a pregnancy doesn't understand why they feel the way they do. It may be an inability to love. It may be self-destructive behaviors, all kinds of things, suicidality. Nobody talks about that. And it's so important that we help, and again, that women understand that pregnancy is a blessing to your body, regardless of the circumstances. That first pregnancy is important because it changes everything in your body and it gives you protection against breast cancer. If you abort that first pregnancy, you have a higher risk of getting breast cancer because the cells don't complete from going from non-differentiated to mature cells.
Yeah.
It talks about that. The other changes, your body, once you've had a baby, your body has changed forever. It's one of the things the doctors ask you. Why? Because it's a different body than you had before. And to help women appreciate that, to know that even if the circumstances aren't the best out there are millions of people waiting to adopt babies. Okay, this child could be placed in a loving home and you get the benefit of the pregnancy and the baby is here and people will love it and take care of it. And we don't talk about that either. Adoption, a couple of years ago, maybe about 5 or 6 now, every place you went, there were negative stories about adoption. Okay. The worst case scenarios. That was really unfortunate because there are millions of good case scenarios where this worked well. They love their children love their, the adoptive parents. Now in the United States, we have what are called open adoptions so that I know who my biological mother is. And I know that this is my adoptive mother and father, and there's still contact. It's so sad because what this does to bodies in terms of long-term complications is enormous, and the emotional complications are incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember a cousin of mine, she had adopted a baby from Greece, and she was blonde and her husband was blonde. And they came home and I was there and the baby started laughing at me because, hey, that is something I know, dark hair.
I recognize that, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but you also see the parents who that child they adopted looks just like them. We have a family that lives across the street and they had 2 daughters and they fostered a 3rd daughter whose mother was involved in alcohol and drugs. They took this little girl in. Well, then they ended up adopting her and then they had another baby. She looks like her sisters. If I said to somebody, pick out the adopted child, they could never in a million years do it because she looks just like her sisters. How did that come to be too? I mean, it's like, that's
amazing. Really amazing. There is another aspect what I find very intriguing, and that is the grieving uterus.
Yeah.
I was pregnant and then my second son died because of the chemotherapy that he got for cancer that came from vaccines.
Oh, okay.
And I remember I was 4 months pregnant, and I remember when I was in bed alone at night after everything that had happened, my husband and my eldest son were in our house in France at the time. So I was alone. And then this 4 months old fetus gave me a kick. Like, hey, but I'm still here.
Yeah.
And when she was born, she opened her eyes, she looked at me, and there were 2 messages. The one was, oh, this is how you look on the outside.
Yep.
And the other one was, oh, but we have done some hard work together already.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what I have seen with her, and it still is sometimes popping up with her, is that she has this, what I call second-hand rose feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I got pregnant, I was working with my son in the hospital.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And when she was born, I was still grieving.
Yes, you were. Yes. See, and I have a similar experience with our oldest daughter. I had a miscarriage before her.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't bond. I was excited to be pregnant, but I know I didn't bond because I was afraid I was going to lose her. She was the one who had the difficult labor. All right. Then there was another baby born after her, a miscarriage, but like 4 months. And then the next son, that sense of loss of those other babies that you didn't get to know well, really impacts that. And that daughter too still has woundedness and I've apologized and asked for forgiveness for the fact that I consciously was aware I wasn't bonding because I was so afraid that I was going to lose that baby too. And, she carries the wound from that. I know she does.
Yeah. Yeah. I wrote a chanson about my daughter, describing how I got the courage to really love her again
really?
after.
Oh, how beautiful.
The other child. I will send it to you. It's in French, but
Okay, that's all right.
You will understand. But yeah, I think that is a very important thing. I know that a friend of mine was married to a man who was the son that got born after a spontaneous abortion,
Yeah.
miscarriage,
Yeah.
and he was always very depressed.
Yeah.
And eventually he killed himself.
Yeah. Well, the daughter that I talked about was a twin, which I did not know.
Oh.
And, 1 in 8 of us are conceived as twins, and we have a vanishing twin syndrome. And I had a funny little bleeding before I knew I was pregnant with her. So question mark. And then she was due at a certain time, but she was born early, but she was not premature. So as a mother, you're like, but there were no twins in the family. So I, wasn't on my screen. And when she was about 14 or 15, I was giving a talk, and someone introduced me to this vanishing twin question, and
Yeah.
I knew that she was a twin. Now, I did not know about carrying cells at that point. Okay, I learned that later, but I would have known that biologically. So I talked to my husband about it, and I thought, okay, I'm just going to sit on this just for a little while because I don't want to trigger something with these the other kids that were miscarried. All right. Now, 2 months later, she came to me about 2 a.m. and she said, Mom, can I talk to you? I was thinking and I was praying and I think I'm a twin. And I said, I think you are too. I said, is it a boy or a girl? And she said, it's a boy. His name is Joseph Francis. And that's why I'm so bonded to the brother behind me and why all my best friends have always been guys, which was true. I've been looking for my brother. And that unfolded a whole, I talk a lot about this vanishing twin business because many of us have lost that twin. We intuitively are looking for them, but we don't know that. And so that can, I think, figure into even some of the same sex and transgender questions that are there.
Yeah.
I've been looking for my brother. Okay, I'm a boy. I don't know what I'm looking for. Okay, but it must be sexual according to the society. In transgenderism, I carry the cells of a female twin. I'm a boy. What does that do to your body? Those are active cells, and nobody's really looked at those. But I raised the question of the twin question with someone I knew in Canada who'd been very active in the gay rights movement and had come out. And I said to him, what do you think about this? That's just a question. And he paused and he said, oh my God, Vicki, do you know how many couples look alike? He said, I look so much like my partner that people couldn't tell us apart. Question mark. All right.
Whoa.
So, okay, that's politically incorrect as I'll get out. But question mark, this question of searching for that person who's supposed to be in my life. You see twins in utero and you see they have a relationship.
Oh, yeah.
They're hugging each other or they're punching each other, depending, but there's a relationship.
Yeah.
And we don't raise that either. And so that complexity of who was in there with me, who isn't here now. Althea Hayton, who is a British woman, had a website called womb, W-O-M-B, twin.com. And she did a lot of research. She's got 3 or 4 books on womb twins, the biology of it and the experience of it and all that kind of thing. And Aletha died last year, but someone else is continuing the website. But it's something we have to know is very common, much more common than if we only look at birth statistics. Mm-hmm. There aren't that many twins, relatively speaking. But the reality is that in terms of conception, there are many twins, and we've lost that twin. So anybody that has 2 colored eyes, that's an absorbed twin. If somebody has a teratoma, that's a tumor that has hair and teeth in it. That's an absorbed twin. Again, those pieces that we don't think about. But the complexity of what was that uterine environment like for our kids? What was it like in there?
Yeah. Another part of this of the theory on transgenderism and homosexuality is epigenetic factors like pesticides or radiation issues.
Also trauma in mothers. The first research done on male homosexuals This is years ago. It was right after sometime after World War II. And they did brain scans, and they discovered that there was a subgroup that had a different brain configuration, and that by scent, they would find the same brain configuration in another person of the same sex. They all had mothers who had had massive trauma during the pregnancy. Father died, house burn, I mean, big trauma, okay? So that question about epigenetic change, I think, is a very legitimate one in terms of what are we being exposed to? What happens if I'm pregnant and I'm still on the pill? There's a lot of women that don't know they're pregnant because I'm not supposed to be pregnant. So this child is getting exposed to excess estrogen, progesterone, depending on what the compound is, question mark. And we know that the babies that were in utero and under threat of miscarriage from the 40s to the 70s, when we gave them diethylstilbestrol to prevent miscarriage, those women and men had huge health issues, and it's into the third generation now in terms of the epigenetic change. Uterine change, infertility, breast cancer, malformed genitalia in men, low sperm count. Well, what was that about? Something wasn't the way it was supposed to be.
Yeah. And now, with all the knowledge about thalidomide, softenol, we call it.
Thalidomide,
thalidomide, and this. Now we want to vaccinate pregnant women with the pertussis vaccine, which brings you also the tetanus and the diphtheria. My friend in Australia, the world expert in vaccination damage, Dr. Vera Scheibner, she has written some rapid responses in the British Medical Journal about the Zika. It had the microcephaly has nothing to do with mosquitoes or Zika. It has everything to do with the fact that in Brazil, at the end of 2014, women were supposed to be vaccinated with whooping cough when they were pregnant.
Oh, really?
And it is the fever of the mothers that have ruined the development of the brain and the skull of these babies. That is what it is.
I haven't heard that. I hadn't heard that. That's very interesting.
I will send you her rapid responses.
Yeah, send it to me. I'd like to have those.
Yeah, she is very clear on that. And I sent her also that I found that they found that in that part of Brazil, they had been fumigating a certain pesticide that is aimed at killing the larvae stage of mosquitoes.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And they said it was that caused the microcephaly. And then Vera said, no. Yeah, they come with all sorts of things except vaccination. And I know from experience, I've been writing about vaccination since 1996. I know from experience that everything will be brought up, but vaccination. Not ever.
Not ever. One of our sons had a negative reaction to an MMR shot, and right on target. I mean, the day that they said he could have something, fever shot up. He had huge welts all over his body. We took him to the hospital, and they gave him something to reduce the allergic reaction, which of course didn't have to do with the MMR. I mean, it was something else.
No.
And then it got worse, and he was in the hospital on an ice blanket for a while, and the whole 9 yards. And the doctor, who was from Holland, was very interesting. He's a very skilled doctor, but it was not the MMR. It must have been something he ate. So what did he eat? Well, he must be allergic to strawberries. Well, he was not allergic to strawberries. He's never been allergic to strawberries in his life. But the timing of it was exactly on target for when he should have had an MMR reaction.
Yeah. Vera Scheibner also has pinpointed the extra critical moments after vaccination. I can send you that information as well.
I'd be interested in that, yeah.
Because she found in a research with a breathing monitor, a true breathing monitor, she found the exact moments when children got into trouble. And these moments came at exactly the same places in a chart that Hans Scheier had made in the non-specific stress syndrome. Uh, and meaning that when you give a toxic substance to a mammal or a human, then there is a typical reaction, 3 waves of reaction afterwards. First, the alarm phase, then the resistance phase, and then the exhaustion phase.
Okay. All right.
And Vera had the moments, and she found... And she found... yes, there you are again.
Okay, very good. All right, okay.
And she found the critical moments exactly of the deaths in the graphs of cot death babies, crib death babies, SIDS babies.
Okay.
Exactly within the moments that she had found. So there was a correlation. But when she said that to the doctors in Sydney, the pediatricians, they killed the whole thing, the whole research, because it couldn't be vaccines. And I think that is a sort of voodoo, in the sense that doctors and parents are being educated. Vaccines are safe and effective. So pure NLP, it can't be the vaccines, period. Toing. It's not there.
Yeah. Well, and you see again how much money the pharmaceutical companies make from promotion of all of these, whatever it is, whether it's the vaccine or any of the things that get advertised on television here. They do the advertisement about how, it makes you free the rest of your life. It's wonderful. And then they go, but by the way, if you have X, Y, Z, it could kill you. I'm like,
yeah.
But those pieces are just, we are so buried in propaganda about that sort of stuff that it's very hard, and it's very hard to have people hear what you're talking about, and the government here, these kids are required, if they're going to be in school, they have to have had all these vaccinations or they won't be allowed into school. Well, okay. But again, where's give us the rest of the research.
Well, it's not there. And vaccines are never tested on their carcinogenity, the teratogenicity, or the way that they can maim and kill in other ways.
Yeah, never. No. And you come out with these things and you don't have any kind of long-term, well, that was the whole Gardasil. There's no long-term testing to see if it's viable and not dangerous. So we start, and now we have our experiment is the young women and the kids who are dying and are hurt by it.
Yeah.
And nobody's, no, it can't be it. That's not it. It's some other strain. In the environment.
I wrote a book on the HPV vaccines in 2009, and I wondered in there if the virus-like particles are compounding themselves spontaneously in this soup of the cells of the moth or the other stuff that they use. What will happen with these virus-like particles in the body? Where will they go and spontaneously marry with?
Yeah, well, and that, those viruses will do that, in terms of, now we have a new virus. Well, where did that come from? And again, we don't want to think about where it came from. It's just sort of like, oh, well, look at that. Now where? We just have no idea. And you have to wonder what's going on in bodies in terms of tipping those things. The whole issue here in the States is that we use a lot of antibiotics after the baby is born too. And I've been reading a couple of books on the whole change of the biome, that if it's a C-section, the baby doesn't get inoculated in terms of the mother's bacteria, though. Exactly. One of them talked about the fact that we do pass bacteria from our mouth to the baby through the placenta. And there's an interesting article. I love to do this with the young kids because they go, okay. One 10-second kiss transmits 80 million bacteria. But if I only have one partner, the baby is going to get the bacteria of both parents.
Yeah.
It's going to, both sides of the genetics are going to be at play. When you think about it, that's pretty miraculous again, in terms of how awesomely this system works. It used to be, the placenta was a dead end. It was a barrier. It's not a barrier. It's a superhighway.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and we all are stuck with the Pasteur type of thinking, like there is one microbe organizing one illness and
Yeah.
this and the other, while the reality is totally different. It's Pierre-Antoine Deschamps' idea that he found. It's not a theory, as far as I'm concerned, of the polymorphism.
Yeah.
The bacterium or the virus or the whatever, the microbe, has a shape and a behavior according to the environment it is in. So if you have a healthy environment within your body, they will be there, but they will be okay. They will do their jobs because we are full of bacteria, viruses and stuff, and they all have little tasks, and without them we couldn't exist.
Yeah, exactly.
So from that fact alone, it's ludicrous to hunt for a microbe.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but we do have this sort of single vision, it must be one thing. And
Yeah.
you have to find that one thing. And it's all this interaction in terms of, they're meeting and now we have a new microbe that wasn't there before or whatever. And when you read the books that are being written again about the biome stuff and how these again, bacteria, other critters that are in there that are supporting our system can really wreak havoc when this kind of crossing happens. And again, the system isn't healthy. So these aren't doing what they're supposed to do either.
Yeah, exactly. They behave differently. They have different shapes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And the one way to get well is not to throw in more chemicals and more toxins, in other words, medicine. It is to get the environment back to the natural
state.
Healthy state. Yeah.
But
and the same goes basically for how we act around our sexuality, our children, our culture.
It's all part of the picture.
Yeah, it's very interesting that in Holland we have the euro these days. We used to have guilders.
Right. Yeah.
These days there are children who never seen a guilder.
Really?
Same vein.
That makes sense. Yeah. All right. Yeah.
In the same vein, now there are children who never have seen what a normal relationship is like. I was flabbergasted the other day on television at a talk show. I don't know. There was this young, good-looking guy, 30-ish, I think, and he was saying, "Oh, well, I cannot imagine what it should that I should have to have only one partner my whole life."
Oh my!
I thought, oh, gee, are you a goner from reality?
Yeah, but that is the social media mindset.
Exactly.
And where would he have seen one partner? Probably not. I mean, because there's so many broken relationships.
Exactly. Yeah.
Very sad.
I have an old friend. He's a doctor, Hans Molenburg. He is 90 years old and his wife is 88 or something. They have been together 62 years, and every time I see them, I enjoy what I'm seeing. I love it. I really love it. It's so beautiful.
Well, and see, our young kids, grandpas and grandmas may be divorced, but they don't even see their grandparents, assuming they're together, because grandpa and grandma have migrated to a warmer climate. And so again, those were the relationships that even if my parents' relationship collapsed, I had other relationships that I could take in and see. Yeah. And there's a young woman here who's written a book, and I'm writing the introduction to it, but she talked about having met this elderly woman at one time and what an incredible impact this woman had on her in terms of sort of being this earth mother kind of person that everybody loved her. And she loved everybody, and they all wanted hugs from her. And I thought, that used to happen. We used to have those women in our cultures who taught us how to be women. Okay, they were the generation or two before us, and now they're gone. We don't see them. No,
that's true. We need more mother amas.
Yeah, we do, and women need to risk doing that. Because again, we've gotten caught in the whole radical feminist mindset of. But I have to be like a man in order to be a woman, and I can't embrace my fertility because that makes me whatever. I'm a woman then, and that's not good. And so we're missing this gift And it's possible to put things together, but we don't honor motherhood anymore and that gift of fertility. It's a proposition. Children are possessions. I expect my children to fulfill my expectation I want them to be a doctor. I want them to be a lawyer. Well, he might want to be a plumber. He might want to be a carpenter, and a darn good one at that. And he may make more money than the doctor in today's world.
Exactly.
But they don't have that freedom to explore who am I supposed to be? Because there's all this expectation. I invested so much money in having this child, whether it was in vitro fertilization or whatever. And so this child had better really please me. And then you get that, oops kid that comes along, and they don't know who they are because they aren't fulfilling anybody's expectation. And they're so worried that they're going to disappoint. And those are just critical pieces that change the society.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It is a shame because I there is this expression in Dutch, I take a child.
Oh, I take a child. Okay.
Yeah. And I think, what?
Yeah. Is that a new expression or was that an old one?
No, they have been speaking that since the pill is there. We have decided to take a child.
Take a child. Okay.
Yeah. Ik neem kinderen.
Yeah. Well, and you see the amount of money people are willing to spend on the in vitro fertilization things. I mean, in some cases, this is $30,000 or more. That's a lot of money. And again, so now it becomes the proposition that I have to be somewhat wealthy in order to take a child with that language. It's so hard, and people don't understand why they're infertile. One of the things with the pill is it ages your ovaries and it ages your ovum. It shrinks your ovaries and ages your ovum. So by 30, women who've been on it since they were 14 or 15, infertility is an obvious outcome. And they don't know why. The doctor doesn't tell them, oh, you have eggs that look like you've been on the pill for a long time. We can fix it. For a lot of money, we'll help you. But it's very sad.
Yeah. But do the doctors know?
Not all of them, but some of them should.
So, yeah, some of them, yeah.
Especially the fertility experts should know that that's one of the. You would think they'd know that. I mean, that's
should is the operative word.
Yeah, that's the operative word.
Yeah. Well, I don't hold my breath, as Vera Scheibner would say.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Don't.
No. Yeah. I would like to talk a little bit about the effect on fathers with abortion, because that is not very well understood. I bet people have never thought about that, many of them.
No, they haven't. We've done 2 conferences on it here in the States, and there was another conference in Canada that I wasn't able to go to this past year. But the thing I talked about, men being changed by pregnancy, all right, that knowledge and what's happening to his body. And we don't know what happens, but I have to believe that if the chemical signal from his partner is gone because of an abortion, that's doing stuff to his body as well, okay, because his body was set to go for the 9 months plus in terms of change, all right? Yeah. Many men would have protected if they could have when you talk to them. But they're told, be quiet. It's her body. You can't say anything. The men who would have done anything to stop this, I mean, they would have raised the child themselves, whatever. Those men are immediately very sad. They're very rage-filled because they couldn't protect. And some of these guys are dangerous. I mean, they'll stalk someone. They'll try and figure this out. And there have been some tragic murder-suicides here. Now, for the most part, no one knows what the cause is because nobody speaks about it. But once in a while, the family will know that there had been an abortion and he lost it, okay? Then you have the guys who, it's kind of okay because we're in graduate school and I guess it's all right without really thinking their way through it. And they later, so the abortion happens, the relationships break up. Only 30% of relationships survive an abortion, all right? So there's 70% that are scattered. Now, on top of the loss of the abortion is the loss of the partner, okay?
Yeah.
But these guys for whom it seemed okay when they become a father, now it's okay, we're married, whatever. They are highly anxious in the pregnancy. They're very worried that something's going to happen to this baby. Now the mother is too after an abortion, all right? And so when the baby comes, sometimes they push the mother away and they become mother and father, but they don't do the father things. Fathers are supposed to teach us to risk take. They're the ones who play the game of tossing us up in the air and we go ride the bike and all that. These fathers are terrified of that. And they will rush. This is a true story. This one man told me about this. His baby sneezed and he said, I rushed that child to an emergency room and I said, this child is dying. It's got pneumonia. And the nurse took it back into the examination room and came out and said, sir, this baby just has fuzz in its nose. It's not deadly. And he couldn't believe it because he was so convinced that something awful was going to happen to this child. Oh. And so these fathers are very smothering. The fathers are smothering. And they get too enmeshed with this child in terms of this protection piece. You know, fathers are supposed to protect, but the research shows that fathers are the ones who teach us how to take risks and survive. You know, let's go ride the bike down the hill. And mom is going, oh, wait. But dad's like, oh, this will be a big adventure. You know, that's what we're supposed to learn from our fathers. Well, these guys can't do that. No. And then there are the men who do force. Okay. And they, many times, this is a power issue. And I had one woman who had called and she was in her 30s and he was in his 30s and they were cohabiting. They had not married, had a lot of money. And she got pregnant and she had had an abortion before and she was determined she was going to carry this baby. And he was determined she was going to abort it. And he told her that. He said, no, I'm going to harass you for 36 weeks to have this abortion. So she'd call me every week and I'd sort of prop her up. And finally I said to her, has he been involved in other abortions? And she said, oh, no, I don't think so. And I said, well, would he call me? I just want to know what's the dynamic here. And he called. I didn't expect that to happen. And I said to him, so what's the deal? And he said, well, there's never a good time to have a baby. Never. And I said, well, have you been involved in other abortions? And he said, yes, 6 or 7, maybe 8. I don't remember. Ooh. Okay. That numbness, but it's about control. All right. But then you have the fathers who find out after it happened. His best friend says, you know, when Mary and you broke up, you knew she was pregnant. No, I had no idea. You know, she had an abortion. I had no idea. Those men are they're just wiped out because they're usually men who would have protected. I mean, they would have, you know, walked with her in the pregnancy. Yeah. Then there are the men who wonder if an abortion happened. You know, they hear years later a description. They go, oh, that sounds like my old girlfriend. I wonder. But you don't know if it's your baby. Was it someone else's baby? Okay.
Yeah. Oh, gosh.
And then I met a man that I hadn't put into the equation before in a restaurant. All right. And he was someone who almost lost a child to an abortion. And he thought the child had been aborted and then discovered that she hadn't been. Eventually, he found her and found his granddaughter. Now, he's somebody who became an adamant defender of life. I mean, angry, adamant defender of life.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, but the how this plays out is so complex and we don't see the pieces. If I'm a father and I've lost children to abortion and I don't tell the woman I'm marrying, this is going to be at the heart of our intimacy because I'm afraid she's going to abort the child and not tell me. Oh, okay. I mean, I'm afraid. And for the woman who may also have lost several children to abortion, maybe she made the decision, maybe she was forced into it, whatever. She's not sure that this man will stand by her. And they've never discussed the intimate piece that they both have lost children to abortion. It's an enormous issue. And, you know, if we have 50 million abortions in the world in a year, all right. And my guess is that's low because I don't think there's like Africa and India, China, where we know how to do this with herbs. We're not counting. Okay. We don't know. Mm-hmm. But there are so many men who've lost their children and they're invisible. I mean, it's a woman's issue. That's all. But no, the reality is there's 2 partners here that were involved in this pregnancy. Yeah. And we need to help them to heal because they get involved in sexual addiction. They get involved in pornography. They get involved in alcohol, drugs, and in risk-taking behaviors. And these are guys who, you know, go out and ride fast horses. If they're in the country somewhere, they go back again and again to war because they want to confront death. They weren't able to protect, and now they do dangerous things to try to make sense out of this. Yes. It's an enormous issue. And we aren't talking about it, that there's these other people. And again, the man knows this pregnancy. When I had one of my pregnancies that I miscarried after the daughter I was speaking about, I hadn't really gotten my period back from nursing yet. I'd had a couple little spotting episodes, but not anything in particular. And we went to a family gathering, and my husband's uncle, who was the father of 6, said to me, "Congratulations." And I'm like, "On what?" He goes, "You're pregnant." I said, "No, I don't think so." And then I miscarried, and I was 4 months pregnant. Okay, I hadn't had any symptoms. So in terms of the hormones, this was not a viable pregnancy, but you don't know that when you're in the middle of it,
Mm-hmm.
He knew. He recognized it.
Whoa. Yeah. Yeah.
But how many of our men are wounded? And again, now we look at societies where we're missing fathers. Okay. Do they bolt because the pain gets too great? And I can't talk about my loss. And I mean, the layer upon layer of complexity here, but that's engaged because of this, the loss of children is enormous.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't talk about it. And it's everywhere, it's everywhere in the world where it's legal that the man would know, okay, or suspicion that she might have had an abortion. And in Europe, in Eastern Europe, so Poland, Romania, Ukraine, Russia, the average number of abortions a woman's had in Russia is 9. When I was in 9, that's average. When I was in Romania, I was with 2 doctors, and they both told me the same thing, which just shocked me. The first one said to me, "I have had women who told me they had 70 abortions. 70. Mm-hmm. Did I think that was possible?" And my first reaction was, I don't think it's possible, but maybe she's telling you I've had so many abortions that you wouldn't believe it. The second doctor I knew from someplace else. I had worked with her a few times, and she is an abortion survivor. And she told me the same thing. Now, I think what that means is that in Romania, when things were really bad, if a woman missed her period, she might not have been pregnant. She might have simply been under massive stress or under food deprivation. She would go to a doctor on the long shot that she could be. All right. And doctors sometimes are not as ethical as we think they would be. Okay. Mm-hmm. So there may have been a quote unquote procedure performed. All right. In Poland, when I first started the work I do here, we had a priest who was a guest at our house, and he said, "This must come to Poland." He said, "There are so many abortions in Poland." Now, those were the days of food lines and people living in a 1-bedroom apartment with mom and dad and, 2 or 3 families. There was no food. And the men wouldn't know about those abortions, most likely. These were women in panic, and the men were gone. They were working the mines or wherever. Mm-hmm. But those numbers are enormous, just enormous.
What will that do with the country? With the people?
I don't know. I mean, I'm going to have an opportunity in May to go to Russia to a family congress that's going to be there. I've spoken at one of these before. They get a lot of people. And this is what I want to raise. We have to recognize the woundedness, and we have to be prepared to help. Okay, because she can't heal it by herself. She really needs somebody to be with her to help her understand this is a woman who lost her child in a traumatic and unnatural fashion. The wounds are the same across the world. Okay, back in the 50s, before I was ever thinking about doing this, in the 50s, I was but a little kid, I might add. Their belief was that the people who had abortions, and there were many, that the spirit of that child couldn't be reincarnated. And their description is that the spirits of these children turn angry and create mischief in the family. Now, the mischief in the family is the same thing we see. This is the grief of a mother who's lost her child in a traumatic and unnatural fashion. But it's everywhere. Okay, that was 50. That was before we were talking about legalized abortion in most of the world. And yet they saw that there was this fallout in terms of relationships and in terms of woundedness, family systems.
Yeah. Yeah, these things are so deep and we don't realize it because we live in the technotronic era and we look at things linearly and crazily.
Well, and the lie that's there is that abortion is a simple medical procedure. It's safer than childbirth, I mean, that's what you always hear. Okay, so when women come looking for help, they don't even understand, and I know this will sound strange, but they don't understand what that abortion did. It was a simple medical procedure. Having a bunion repaired is a simple medical procedure. I don't grieve after that. Getting my ears pierced, having my tonsils out. No, this is different. Okay, because this is about the essence of who we are and about life forces. That's a different ballgame. Mm-hmm. And women, again, they're lied to about this is such a simple procedure and it just takes care of everything and you just go on with your life and it's no problem. Well, the reality is, as women, at some point we have to make sense out of our biological parenting history. It's part of what we do in midlife many times. You know, you think back about the pregnancies you had and the ones you lost and all that kind of thing. Yeah. That's part of who we are. And it's essential to who we are. And we can't deny that those pregnancies that were lost through an abortion were significant. You know, just as a miscarried baby is significant, those experiences were significant. Yeah. But we pretend that they were erased. And it's critical that we find people, mental health people, other people who understand that woundedness, the complexity. We know here, if you've had 3 or more abortions, the chances of you having a very premature delivery are very high. Now, doulas need to know that. Midwives need to know that around the world. Okay. But we don't ask that question usually. Okay. Even when we ask the question about previous pregnancies, women who've had abortions don't necessarily acknowledge that that was a pregnancy. In their head, a pregnancy is a full-term baby. Okay, it's one of those pieces. Yeah. No, that was a medical procedure. That's what she's really asking me about. So the medical people don't necessarily have the tools they need to be able to help these women recognizing this is going to be an at-risk pregnancy.
Yeah, yeah. What is the dynamics of having a premature child when you have had 2 or 3 abortions?
It's very complex because, one, I probably didn't bond well in utero because this pregnancy is reminding me of the ones I lost. And so my stressors are climbing. Then if I'm having a baby and now it's premature, which is more medical intervention, for sure we're in a hospital kind of thing, that's triggering all the memories of the losses before. And so my ability to bond to this baby is very difficult anyway. Okay. So when this baby most needs me to be perhaps, holding it, kangaroo holding it, whatever, I can't do that. And that complicates the care after the fact as well. Yeah. Again, and the epigenetic changes. This child is carrying cells from those children who went before who aren't there. What about the environment of the uterus after 3 or 4 abortions? ? There has to be scar tissue and stuff. And sometimes that's one of the complications is that you can't conceive because there's either cervical damage or there's scar tissue or there was an infection that followed because, again, sometimes this medicine isn't as well done as it should be. Well, then you end up with with an ectopic pregnancy. Okay, that's another risk. All right. Yeah. All of those pieces in terms of what we don't understand about the complexity of this pregnancy and what happens when it ends. That's the hard part. And, we have to know abortions run in families. So many times her mother may have had an abortion. Her grandma may have had an abortion. There's a book here written, I don't know how old the woman is. She's fairly young, about the fact that she's writing this to encourage young adults to be very pro-abortion because her mother had an abortion and she didn't find out until her mother died and they accessed some old records. All right. She never had a chance to ask her mother about it. And then she discovered that her grandmother in Russia had also had an abortion. Well, that happens because I have no opportunity to make sense of this. My mother must have needed this. My grandmother must have needed this. And so I will promote it. Amongst other people, but without understanding what the biology of this is, the complexity and the system that you're messing with here. And, the stopping, for instance, in the first pregnancy of the change in the breast tissue from never pregnant to mature cells. Well, we stop it at the non-differentiated state when the abortion occurs. Yeah. Those cells look like cancer cells because they're in this massive growth state. They don't go back to never. They just stay there. If there's a carcinogen of some kind, the pill, among other things. Yeah. It's a weak spot in the body. Okay. And we don't understand that pregnancy gives us protection in terms of some of those health issues. We don't talk about that stuff. Pregnancy is sort of one of those, it's almost a disease in terms of how it's spoken about now, Yeah. And you get your child in the hospital, you give birth in the hospital. Yeah. Yeah. All those things that really break the opportunity to do the bonding. You know, again, in those days, our babies were delivered by women we knew. They were experienced. They'd been delivering babies for a long time and been part of it. And as young women, we saw birth worked. These women knew how to deliver babies. Yeah. Did babies die sometimes? Yeah, but babies still die. I mean, okay, they hold that up as this, but babies died. Babies are still dying. How did this change anything? It didn't change a darn thing.
No, it didn't change anything.
Other than that, we don't get the chemistry, because when we were with women, and the benefit of a doula and a midwife is that we get oxytocin, which we need for delivery, just by them being in the room. Who tells us that? Nobody tells us.
Yeah, exactly. And you can feel safe with women around you who know what is going on because they did it themselves. And instead in hospital, in comes this male doctor looking at you. Still not 10 centimeters. Oh, gosh. Yeah. And then you feel like this.
Well, exactly. Yeah, like you aren't performing, and then you have to get Pitocin or whatever so that we can perform better. I mean, it is a vicious circle in terms of not letting this woman be able to embrace the gift of that birth and all the chemistry that's supposed to come with it. Because one of the things with epidurals is that epidurals block the baby's ability to latch on afterwards. So breastfeeding is going to be a challenge. They don't tell women that.
Yeah, no.
Women have a right to know that.
Yeah. Well, Vicki, we are almost out of time.
Sure, but thank you. It's been
We have some 2 minutes. Is there something that you want to add, especially that you haven't said yet?
Oh, there's a lot I didn't say. But I think the importance of encouraging the people who are watching, who are listening, to, as women, we need to take charge of our health. We have to be informed about the outcomes of things like, the pill, the IUDs, our birth, those experiences. Nobody's going to tell us this. We have to be assertive and take control. We need other women around us. We need to build those bonds of friendship and a presence, because it gives us good chemistry that calms us down. And we need to really embrace who we are as women, because our gifts are different than man's gifts. And if we keep thinking we have to be like men, we're missing out on the gifts that we have to bring forth into the world. Unique gifts. And that's a message we need to hear. And I don't think we hear it very often.
No, it's a bit a society that doesn't like women very much.
No.
Not as bad as in Islam, but even so.
Well, the piece is that in Islam, that where you stand. For us, we get caught sideways because we think we're free and we've been given all these things.
And we're not.
And we're not. That's the irony of it.
It is.
The men who might be watching also, to know they have to know about our medical pieces too. Okay, if I get blood clots from the pill, he needs to understand that could have been a risk, because his life is impacted by this. We know that women who use the pill, their husbands are more likely to get prostate cancer. We don't know why, but okay, well, there's this direct correlation. So as a couple, we need to be walking together in terms of this, not to be saying, well, the pill is convenient for me as a man. No, this is a health risk for both of us, for our future children, and for the world at large.
Yeah. Oh, Vicki, I loved speaking with you.
Thank you.
I loved listening to you. And it's a pity.
It's always a wonderful thing to have, Desiree.
Yeah. And it's a pity you're so far away. I would really want to hug you.
I know. Well, bring me to Netherlands. I come to you.
Yeah. Well, I might have an opportunity to do that one day.
Okay. All right. Well, keep in mind, I'm going to be at that thing in Russia.
Yes.
Okay, I'll let you know.
I once had an idea to bring some women together and rent a bus, a car, and go through Europe and do in several countries the same conference.
Oh, that would be interesting.
I already have the driver.
Do that. Yeah, I think you could find people who'd sponsor it in terms of the different countries.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah. And I already have the driver. That's the fun of it.
Okay, good. All right. So we got one thing down. All right. Think about it. I encourage you.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for your wisdom, Vicki. I'm so glad that I could give you a platform to share that with us.
My pleasure.
Because it's so important.
Thank you for what you're doing in terms of bringing the truth to the forefront. It's important.
Yeah. Thank you. And you viewers and listeners, thank you for your attention and your time. And if there are any questions, just mail them to us and I will take care of that they get answered. And well, then I say thank you to Vicki for the technical support, and rest me to say till next time, Minority of One report.
Thank you for tuning into CCN. This unique network is dedicated to free and independent media. CCN was created with the belief that information is the common heritage of all beings, which is why our live stream high-definition broadcast is easily accessible and free to view. If we want to change the world, we must first change the media. Having produced over 1,000 shows in 2015, which are all archived on YouTube, we look forward to bringing you more groundbreaking, cutting-edge information in 2016. For more information on what is on, please check out our broadcast guide for weekly updates. CCN broadcasts in multiple languages and features some key voices of our challenging times who are all in pursuit of a free, fair, just, sustainable world. CCN belongs to you, the people, and it is up to you all to keep this network on the air. Please contribute to the Network Support Fund or visit the CCN shop. We thank you all for supporting free and independent media.